There it is. All right, so let's run through this static assignment. And this is an assignment that comes after, what was it, caching. Okay, so we're going to copy the files from caching, and let's do that right now. I created this this file called st, and where I'm working, and I'm going to copy the files from that caching. Flavio, I'm going to use your stuff, and that's in caching, right? And there's no subdirectories in there, right? That's just that. Okay. And remember, in this caching assignment, just to review what's going on, it's hard to remember what we did. So I'm going to run the server, and so it looks like this. So we have an image which is delivered. That's a file. You know, we have an image file. And I think we called it image.png. So we can request that. Whoops. We can request that directly, like that. See that? So we can get that directly. And this message, we can also request the message directly as well. See that? Then we just see the JSON string, right? But when we use the script, you know, when we make the request by clicking on that link, we're going to end up parsing that right down here. So we get the data there, and then we parse it. So we pull out the message, and we just want to render the message. So once again, that's what the string looks like. That's the key message. So this is a JavaScript object. This is the key, and this is the value, key value pair. And so this code sends the request, it gets that JSON string, parses it, turns it into a JavaScript object, accesses the MSG key, and gets the value, which is hello JSON. So that's now what we want to do is, you know, we're serving the image file through our own code. But that's a standard sort of functionality that most web development environments provide you in some way. So what we're going to use is a ST library to serve our static content. In other words, content that won't change. So we'll use the ST library to replace our code that reads in that image file and sends it to the client, and also our code that reads in the app.html file and returns that to the client. But what we won't do is we will not use the ST library to satisfy these JSON requests, because you know that's going to evolve so that the JSON requests will be dynamic. You know, will be based on hitting the database or something like that. So that wouldn't be considered static. And right now, the JSON data is static, but it's ultimately destined to be non-static. It will be generated on the fly based on, you know, whatever is going on there. But the image file, or the HTML file, that's static content. So we're going to rely on this ST library to serve the static content. So that means we need our main and message.js, and then we have a folder called static, and that'll contain, we're just creating a folder just to keep the static content conveniently separated from you know, the code that's not delivered to requests, to the browser requests. Let's go ahead and create that folder. So I'm going to make a directory called static, and then let's move the image into to static. And let's also move app.html into static, but we're going to rename it, by the way, into index.html. That's a standard name for the root element. Now this, where is it? Root.js. That's what we did to, you know, read in read in the app.html file. So we're going to use ST to do this now. We're not going to do this work anymore. So we can delete that. And that's going to be called, it's root.js. And we don't need that. We don't need image.js either. But we're going to keep message.js because that'll evolve into a handler that's going to access the content dynamically. So it won't be static anymore. But it's static right now, of course. Now, in this, in main.js, of course, we don't have the root folder anymore. That's not there. And the image, we don't have that anymore. We have message. We're going to keep that. That's still there. But then we'll need to import the ST module. We'll do that right here. And this stuff, reply, error, reply not found. Oh, didn't this stuff go into response? Let me see. That's response, right? Do we want to put that stuff in there? Did I say anything about that? Reply not found. Should we put that in response? Did I ask to do that or not? I think that should go in there. I don't know why we didn't do that. Let's see. So,
You didn't ask for it, but in the assignment it says that we're not going to use the response .js. So are we going to use it now?
we're not going to use that? I think we would when we satisfy requests for the message. Maybe. Let me take a look. Let me take a look here. And I'm going to paste that in there. This is reply not modified. This is reply error. And just to clean this up a little, yeah, we might not actually use these. So I'm going to do this anyway because I think this is the right way to do it. So these are utility functions. So, if we want to generate an e-tag, we want to reply not modified. Actually, these two we won't need anymore. These two we won't need. Oh, I see. I'm varying from the assignment too much, right? Yeah, so let me go back. Sorry about that. Yeah. Let's see. If I go to here, paste that back in there. Oh, just keep it in there. All right, so you're right. We don't need that. We won't need response .js. We don't need that because that's only needed for that static content. And these two errors are are done just from the main module. All right, so when they're here, it's going to look something like this. We're going to look for request for message. If there's a request for message, we're going to handle it with our message handler. That's it. Otherwise, and you know what? I'm going to clean this up a little bit. We're mixing tabs and spaces, and I've been hammering at people for doing that, so we can't do the same thing, right? And so I'm going to go with spaces this time. So here we handle that request. Otherwise, we're going to let ST handle the request. And I forget how you do that, so I'm going to handle request in some way. I'm just going to. So that's what we're going to end up doing. We don't need these, do we? We deleted those.
Yeah, didn't image.
We don't need this.
Right.
Make sure you don't leave it in there because we don't need it, so you can take that out. And basically we start up the server. When a request comes in, we create a domain object, which lets us catch all exceptions generated out of the request handling. And then on this domain object we call run, and we pass in this callback function. So when the domain object is ready to run the request handling code, it calls this function, which just turns around and calls this function with request and response objects. So that means when a request comes in, we're going to start executing from here. And we have some logging here, which we could take out. It's all right. And we check, well, if the request is for the message, then we're going to handle it in our message handling routine. Otherwise, we're going to let ST handle it. Now, how does ST handle it? How do we do that? Let's go to take a look. Here's the repository where the ST code is, and it shows the usage here. So, we've already included that. And when we create the server, it looks like we initialize ST by passing in the name of the folder where the static content is located. This CWD is current working directory, so this is an example where the current working directory is the location where the static content is. So we'll probably have to do something like that. Oh, here's the create server. I see, this is the callback function. So we do something like this. We use this mount command. I think that's all we got to do is right there. I think that's it right there. That looks like what we got to do. Usage. Here are some very simple usage examples. Just serve the files in the current working directory at the root of the HTTP server URL. So we'd want to do something like this. And I'm just going to guess here that we're not going to use the current working directory. We're going to use that static folder, right? That's just inside of it. I'm going to make those apostrophes just to sync up with the rest of my code. See that? So remember I created that static folder, put the static content in there. So the current working directory, that's where we run node main. That's the current working directory. So I want the static folder in there. I would guess that that's going to work. And serve the files in static under the static URL. Oh, so this is if a request comes in that starts with this this path, then we're going to go into the static folder under. This must be the current working directory as well, by the way. I think we could also use this. I think that's the equivalent to this. We can try that. I think those are the same thing. This underscore dir name, I think that's a variable name that node gives us. It's like their current working directory. I think that's the case. We can test that. And then, but we don't need this. We're not sending in these requests like this. So that's let's see. So we do call mount on this. And then, oh, I see. We call mount. Ah, I see. Now this isn't going to work. So this will need something like this. I'm going to go back. Did I talk about that in here? No, I don't. I don't show much at all, do I? So I think we're going to need to do something more like this. I left this pretty open for everyone to work on, didn't I? So the URL would be, this top level URL, and this is good here. And then this mount, we'll have to declare it up here. So we don't need these. These aren't going to work. So this mount is not defined yet. See, it's like it's the file system that's mounted. It's like mounting a file system that contains that static content. I think that's where they get the word mount from. So basically, this is the file system location. This is the folder location in the file system. The current directory plus /static. So everything that's in that static folder under our current directory will be handled for requests starting with the root. So that means we need to have that mount defined up here. I'm going to just stick it up here. So that's a bar there. So this is what we call ST, and ST returns this mount object. And that's used to, in this form here, we pass in the request and the response. That's used to satisfy requests for static content. Let's take a look. I think that's enough right there. I think that's going to do it. Let's see if that works. Oh, we didn't have the library yet. See here? This is my parent folder. But I have it in the parent of my parent. So what happens when Node is looking for a module? It'll go up to the parent one after another and sees if any one of my parents, grandparents, ancestors, if any one of my ancestor folders contains a Node modules folder, I'll look in there for the module. So it's going to find it there, assuming that it's, SEST is there. So that's going to work. So let's go ahead and run this thing. I cannot find module ST. So ST is it's considered part of the system. We imported it. It's not one of our own modules in the current folder, so I'm going to take that out. We gave it an absolute path there. There we go. Oh, nothing. What happened? Why did that happen like that? So we do this. What's going on? Why doesn't that? Oh, I forgot. I took that code out that does listening. Son of a gun. Well, it's easy to do, right? So I can just, it's server dot listen 5000. Remember, we deleted that initialization code, so it took that out by mistake. Yeah, there we go. So hopefully we're going to get the same result here. Well, that's interesting. If we go here, looks good. It's working. See that? Look at that. Nice. But it gives us a list here. Let's see if we can go up. I think this will refuse. It's going to say, like, it won't let us go up. It's going to, for security reasons, we're not going to be able to go up. All right. And these, obviously, the image can be retrieved. Now, ST is returning these. But now what I want is, I'm going to show you how to redirect that to this. So one way to handle that is to do a redirect. I'm going to show that to you. I think I have that in the instructions. So, where do I have that? Right there.
Right there.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, did you start that now?
So, use the following code to redirect requests for slash to slash index.html. So, all right, we can do like that. It would be something like this. Else if request.url equals exactly slash. All right? Then what we do is we do this. But you know what? I don't really like it in that spot. Let's put it up here. So this is a function redirect index. You know, just to stick it in here. Maybe this is not a good. So I need the response object, don't I? Just to get it out of the way, I put it here. Oh yeah, that fits nicely right there. Yeah, I don't want this section to get too big. Redirect index. And pass in the response object, that's what it needs. So let's see if that works. And now when we request the root, it redirected the browser to request this. There's another way to do it, which is probably better, and it's in here, I think. Let's see here. When it has all this business, caching and everything, this is very good. So this this st module is a function that we call. It returns this mount object. And when we call this st function, we configure it with all this stuff. And all that we've passed in right now is the path and the URL. This is the file system path to the folder of static files. This is from what part of the URL do we look for static content? And we're passing in just slash, everything that starts with a slash, top level. And then here's another parameter, which is cache. And this is how to do the caching. And we can turn caching off, for instance, and the rest of this business. I wonder if you can do the that e-tag caching. So we've kind of lost control over that. Let's see what it's doing by default. Oh, not that. I keep doing this wrong. It should be. There it is. Let's look at the whether it's doing any e-tag caching for us. I'll start with the image. That's the most required. Reliable. So this is the response. There is an e-tag. So by default, it's using e-tags. Look at that. Now, isn't that convenient? And here, the browser didn't send. This is at 200. Now watch. If we refresh this, we don't want to disable the cache here. So if we refresh this, because when you have the web developer tools open, usually you want to disable your cache. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting old stuff when you're trying to test something new. But in our case, we're trying to test the cache. So we're going to make sure the cache is running. So now, when we refresh now, the request header should have the E tag in it, and it should equal this, 16777, okay? Let's try that. Look, see, 304 not modified, and there it is right there, 16777. See that? And yeah, the response is 304 not modified. Don't bother to send the data. Just send a couple of headers to say it's in your cache. So that's better. That default caching mechanism is better than setting, this max age stuff, I think. This stuff says, this is how old, when does a static object expire? When do you want to refresh your cache? To me, I can't imagine using that because you don't have any control over it. I mean, do you know when you're going to roll out new versions of an image? And then if you do, let's suppose you set your age at 1,000 days and you roll out a new image in 500 days, and then you got to wait another 500 days for the browsers out there to refresh their caches. So it never made much sense to me to use this, but I know sites do this. They actually do this. But I didn't look into it as a technique very carefully because I felt it lacked a lot of control. But the E-tag mechanism is very good to me because you get absolute control over it. And then this content, what is this thing? Index. Oh yeah, here. This is if we can set index to false. See, now we're redirecting. These are the indexing operations. This is auto index. That's the default. Remember when we went to the root and it showed us a list of files?
Yes.
This is the default setting. Index set to true. Of course, now we're intercepting requests that are for the root, and we redirect them. But we can actually take that code out and use this mechanism instead. I want to show you how to do that. Now watch this. Index true. So here, let's get rid of this redirect index. We don't really need that. We could take this out, and instead, when we well, first I want to show you, I want to recreate what we saw previously. So index : true. Do that. So we're going to say, yeah, go ahead. And this is the default, which is how we first tested it. This is saying that go ahead and index the folder for us. So watch this. There it is. See, it indexed the folder for us. But usually sites don't do that. You're not going to go to Google and get a list of folders that are in there. So most sites don't expose that. So what you can do is you can put back that redirect code that I showed you, or you can let ST do it. And just say, hey, ST, when a request comes in for the index or for the folder, then use index.html as a response. Now this is going to be different than what I showed you. What I showed you was actually sending back a message to the browser and saying to the browser, hey, request another object, request index.html. So the browser turned around and sent a request for index.html. This solution, I believe, and we have to test it. This solution is the request comes in for the root resource, and ST pretends. It doesn't tell the browser to request index.html. It just returns the contents of index.html. And this would be a more standard approach, by the way. This is the standard approach. And let's test that hypothesis right there. It did not work. What is going on? So, oh, it's coming up not modified. Oh, wait a minute. Got to disable the cache. There we go. See, now it works. See, I told you, this is really tricky, when you're testing web apps.
If you don't pay attention.
Browser cache is really important to pay attention to. It'll just trick you up. So this is now, when we send in a request for the root resource, and by the way, that's equivalent to that. And look, even Chrome even takes it out. So that's the same as sending in this request. But the solution that's in the instructions is to send this 302,
Yes.
which is this code that tells the browser that, hey, it moved. The object has moved. And then the browser is going to look for a header, a location header. That's where the resource was moved to.
Yes.
So you got to include a location header when you send a 302. And then, and of course, you have to say, this is the URL that you need to request. So the browser turns around and sends in a request for that. But once again, that's not how we're doing it. We're just serving, we're not redirecting the browser anymore. We're just serving the contents of index.html.
Awesome.
So this is actually a better solution than what I have in the assignment. Really don't need to do that. Anything else about this assignment, you guys?
That was really interesting.
Yeah. So I'll take both solutions. You can put in this solution, or I could rewrite the assignment and take this out. Though it does show you how to do this. I think I'll just leave it as it is. But if you want to leave the other solution in there, you can do that, which is simply configuring ST with this.